like for Coreweave. So if I'm looking for that kind of nugget of what I'm excited about, it's the other hyperscalers are using a lot of their capacity for their own purposes. I'm not talking about Meta. I'm talking about Microsoft. I'm talking about Google. I'm talking about Amazon. They've bought a lot of Nvidia, but they're using it to build their own models, to train models, to continue to enhance their own products, services, e-commerce, search. And so the capacity has been pretty limited and constrained. We've seen that's sort of what created some of the relationship tension with Microsoft and OpenAI. But we're also hearing about, like, why are they constrained? They're buying so much of this stuff. So Coreweave isn't doing that. Coreweave is pure play that outsiders are able to rent, consume, and utilize. So Sri, to your question, if these companies are really looking to accelerate the implementation of AI, and I do believe they are, but I do believe there's a bit of a gap between the build out and the consumption that does need to be filled. Coreweave sits in a really good position. Having said that, the growth rate to be able to support this, I mean, you look at this and you go, how are they going to not need to raise more money in a year? And if it turns out that, say, the Hopper chip, the last generation before Blackwell, doesn't hold value, there's not a lot of utilization. This is a big question mark. This does not have an answer yet of how much will last generation chips be utilized as new generations of chips come out. Because even Jensen was saying, you don't need Hopper. Blackwell is so much more efficient. That doesn't bode well when all your Hopper is being used as operating leverage.
You know, Dan, we know that Nvidia is sort of underwriting this IPO. It's in for about $250 million worth of stock. OpenAI, I understand, also has a private placement out as well. Growth from OpenAI as it moves away from Microsoft. How likely is Coreweave going to be able to capitalize on that?
Well, first of all, I do think they have a really good position with OpenAI. We know that there's a ton of tension between Microsoft and OpenAI. I think a lot of that has to do with Microsoft being a bit more on its own journey. Microsoft doesn't want to necessarily be dependent on OpenAI, and I think that makes a lot of sense. But OpenAI is going to keep running its race. And again, Coreweave isn't trying to build anything that could be competitive. So this is going to be more of, can Coreweave keep up? Now, having Nvidia as a backer and having Nvidia's interest, given that Coreweave is fully committed. And that's been another real tense point between all the large hyperscalers and Nvidia. At this year's GTC, you didn't even hear Jensen really mention Azure or GCP or AWS. It was almost like he went right past them. He talked about these neo clouds, and then he talked about the enterprises. And I think this is a bit of a watershed moment. It's a sea change in many ways, as Nvidia is moving and understanding that the long term, and you even hear about Nvidia entering and possibly acquiring a company that rents GPUs. Nvidia definitely does not want to be put into a position where, as these hyperscalers build their own silicon, that they could be left out in the cold. Now, Nvidia says it's all, we have better product, we have better software, and in the current moment, they're absolutely right. But over time, you're talking about companies with, billions of dollars of cash on the balance sheet that can invest a lot to try to get to parity. So it's a big moment. Coreweave neutrality, or basically non-neutrality towards anyone but Nvidia, could really play in its favor.